Hello, and welcome to the Lost Art of Diagrams, making complex ideas easy to see with Python. Let's get started. And for those of you who want to see the whole deck along the way, check out this QR code and URL, and you'll have the entire deck at your disposal. A little bit about me. I am Tadeh Hakopian, Program Manager, working in system integration. I make a lot of diagrams for my team. For example, this one is a Gantt chart showing left to right a timeline of project delivery and top to bottom the priority and stacking of that content so I can show what goes first in our execution. This one, a simple linear diagram from left to right explaining how we take the abstract design ideas and go from one phase to another, create some tooling for an output we're doing at the end. And this one is a rose petal Venn diagram that layers many different team responsibilities into an integrated database we're making and how that affects different aspects of different teams and what they're delivering. So as you can see, we do a lot of diagrams. I do a lot of diagrams, and it's important to me in my job to diagram and document the best I can. So how do we diagram? Well, let's take a step back into the past and talk about how architects used to diagram ancient Greek temples. In this example here, we have an Ionian column and the corner of a temple. And here we see everything we need to know in order to make the entire architecture of the temple. The column, the pieces, everything. It's all in proportional relationship. Anybody can understand and read this to get the big picture idea. So that's all you need to understand. Very elegant, and they made beautiful buildings this way. These days, however, we have more plans and schematics and drawing. In this example here, it's a floor plan, and I think many of you have seen something like this before. This building might be familiar. In this case, it's a circular building showing us the plans and the radius. And for those of you who might have guessed, yes, this is the Apple campus building in Cupertino. Off to the right here, we see the circle and the building. But on the left, we actually see a section drawing, not unlike the Greek temple we saw earlier, where in one section we could see a lot of the information and composition of how this building comes together. It's a big circle, so if you take a sweep like this on the left and just rotate it 360, you get most of the building. Here you see the glass, the louvers, the offices. It's a very elegant way to explain to many different people how something comes together and to clarify communication. So it's pretty cool that over thousands of years, there's all these great examples of how architects have diagrammed the projects. And not to mention, just from the building, you can also do cool site plan diagrams like what the green spaces on the left and on the right detail that more with the planting. So there's lots of different ways you can use this diagrammatic concept to your advantage. Now, pivoting over to computer science and software architecture, there's plenty of diagramming going on in this space as well. For example, this is a 1980s sheet paper showing some system architecture being drawn with pen and paper. Pretty straightforward, something we've all seen before. And again, this is in the past, so you think we'd be, moving forward into this beautiful evolution of diagramming in the future, right? Well, here's what we have as diagrams now. It's a bit of a collage of all different kind of diagrams floating out there in things like servers and video concepts and things like that. And not easy on the eyes, I have to say. A bit of a cluster of colors, shapes, very hard to understand, not very intuitive. Despite the evolution of technology, the way we communicate about it, I think, has not kept a pace. And I'm here to say we can do better than this. Diagrams matter. They matter for communication, clarification, the kind of technical identity we want to have for a project, and just general good documentation. And good documentation shows respect. It shows respect to the project you're working on, the people you work with, and to yourself and your own efforts. Documentation goes a long way to clarify your project, your intent, and your goals. So the better you can do on that, the better the project will be. And everybody makes diagrams these days. Back end, front end, DevOps, architects. The architect has a dollar symbol because he spends the most money on the project. But we all work on diagrams regardless of the resources we have at our disposal. So it's important to be aware of how to do a good job making diagrams. And common problems we see at diagrams hold us back, and that includes flat, uninspired diagrams that don't really have a structure to them, repetitive kind of examples where they don't have a lot of variety and clarification in what's going on, confusing diagrams that are hard to follow, and one-off patterns where diagrams might be done as a single effort without any kind of templatizing or systematic approach. That makes it hard to be repetitive and create a kind of style guide. But there's hope. For example, this nice little cheat sheet that is used for Git commands is a great kind of diagram that is not hard to make, pretty clear, and shows you a lot of information compacted into one image that you can share very quickly. Off the top, we have the Git flow. On the bottom right, we have the structure of a Git repository, and then all the commands throughout the middle. Easy to follow, easy to understand. This is a good example of how to make a diagram. And it's not hard to make. You don't have to be a graphic artist to do so. And the importance of diagrams is that beautiful is better than ugly. Yes, we are referencing the Zen of Python Ep 20 because people like beautiful things and we should make things more beautiful. So let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of diagramming. Starting with, what is UX? We all hear about UX and UI, but what is it? Yeah, here's a definition, but basically it's just the process of designing and delivering products that create positive user experiences. It's all about the user experience and making it as positive as possible. And the core fundamentals that I follow for UX is to be clear, be concise, and be useful. If you can provide clarity and usefulness and keep it very simple, people will love it. Can't go wrong. And to help you along the way when it comes to graphics and diagrams, we're going to talk about some graphic fundamentals. And with graphic fundamentals, explicit is better than implicit. Again, than a Python, a great guide. In a few lines, you learn a lot. And what I mean by that is to be clear, explicit, and avoid anything that requires the reader or viewer or the person to do extra work than they have to. Take the work away from them and be explicit in your content. And here's the graphic fundamentals to help you along the way with that. And those are hierarchy, structure, contrast, color, space, and variety. So let's look at each. Hierarchy. Hierarchy can be as simple as a 1, 2, 3 stack, a totem pole. Very easy to follow, hard to mess up. And I think most people have used something like this to their advantage when it comes to trying to create a beginning and end point. But you can also express it in a lot more intuitive way. With 1, 2, 3, it could still be stacked, so you can express where you start and when you end in a very easy way. Remember, be explicit and avoid giving the viewer or user any additional work to do. And just let the shapes do the talking for you. And of course, you can invert it and go into a more of a funnel approach, however you prefer. But if you are going to use a hierarchical diagram, whether it's flat or stacked in either direction, try to make it so it expresses your content and your direction of flow. And you can definitely help your users out to see something very clearly and explicitly. Okay, next is structure. And this little diagram here, we've probably seen something like this. A untethered Jenga tower that is about to fall over. A bit stressful to look at, and it's hard to kind of understand what's happening here. And all you gotta do to make this work is reshuffle a little bit and just organize it. Nice, clear lines, easy to follow, easy to see. Again, take the work away from the user and just let them see what you want to see. Keep everything nice and organized, and take a lot of work. And it helps make everything much clearer. So avoid trying to have a scrabbled set of results like that. Next is contrast. And contrast, just blacks and whites, tints and tones, and how you use them in order to show something. This example here is used in photography all the time to explain contrast value. And contrast could be as simple, if you like, as just black lines and white, just line thicknesses in creating your graphic. Here we see an example of that. Black, whites, and grays with different thicknesses and sizes for the different importances of what you're trying to read. The command of the skip command revert is up front, and the color scheme is very straightforward, and it's easy to follow, easy on the eyes, very easy to reproduce. So with a little bit of contrast can go a long way in clarifying your content. But if you like to live in a world of colors, then colors can be very useful. And for those like myself who had a hard time with colors, it's easier than you think with a few examples. For example, here, this color set is primary colors, very bright, very Lego-like, and nothing wrong with any of this. It's just you may wonder, okay, what if I want different varieties of colors? What if it's a little too much? Well, the good news is these days, all you have to do is look for a color palette that has a harmonious color arrangement that is based on design theories of color. So all you have to do is figure out what it is you're trying to achieve with the color, whether you want a monochrome, multicolor, or whatever, and you could just find these colors through tools and online websites. For example, if you want something colorful like this is actually a color scheme. But if you want something monochrome with different tints and tones for different temperatures of color, you can get that too. And this is great for people who have color blindness. You can just pick something like this that's easy to follow by anybody. And again, this is based on color patterns and color palettes out there. And if you do want something colorful but not as strong, you can go with a pastel scheme like this one. So all you have to do is just look up color patterns and arrangements that are already out there and just pick something that works. That way the colors are harmonious. They're not, half pastel, half fluorescent. They all work together. They're easy on the eyes, and it helps you create some visual variety in your diagram. And of course, you don't have to guess what the colors are. Like in this pastel example, we can see all the hexadecimal color codes at the bottom. So whether you're making a web page or any other kind of reproducible content, the information is all there. So you can see on links here, there's data visualization and color schemes available. So don't feel like color is this abstraction or nice to have or something you just pick out of a default setting. There's lots of great ways to use color in different ways in your project. So try out something simple, and before you know it, you'll have a very easy on the eyes diagram. Next comes space relation. And we've all seen something like this, where we have a stack of diagrams, blocks, and they're all very close together. In this case, we have the structure. We have a little bit of hierarchy. We have the colors. So we use a lot of the examples of the graphic fundamentals already, but it's a bit tight and a bit stressful to look at this because everything's so close. So nothing wrong to then spread them out and give them some breathing room, because here it still holds together. It's not falling apart. It still has a structure to it. It's still easy to understand what's happening here. Because if we pull it apart, it's easy to see each individual block, but also it's easy to see the relationships. Now we can add these kind of flow charts and arrows and all sorts of other assets to the diagrams to make it easy to follow what's feeding into what, important information. So don't be afraid to spread things out, or even just spread things out in the first place and link them up. Give yourself a little bit of breathing space. Don't be afraid of the void. And finally, variety. This is where you get to choose your character. And I usually keep it pretty simple. There's all sorts of great graphic examples out there. If anybody's ever played with the automatic chart generator in Excel or PowerPoint or what have you, you can tell there's a lot of different charts out there. But I keep it very simple. And the ones I usually go with are linear, radial, and branching. I'll give you examples here. Linear, just, steps along the way, start and end, feeding into each other. You can make these top down, left to right. Very simple, very easy to follow. Nothing wrong with this. You don't have to have a fancy diagram to make it easy to follow. So linear is always a good start. You saw earlier I showed you that Gantt chart where it was left to right timeline, up and down priority. So that's a type of linear example as well. So there's different varieties and ways to do this. You can also do radial, which is basically just using circles in relationship with each other's. And what's great about using radial is that you can show relationships between parts, whereas linear, it's to show steps. Radial can show you relationships, and it's a great way to use things like color to your advantage. As you saw that Venn diagram with the rose petal, kind of like layered circles. It's a great way to show relationships. So you can have a lot of fun with these, at the same time convey useful information. And then divergent, also known as branch. And what's great about these is they are a useful way to explain your process, parallel efforts, and tell a story. A lot of us already use these kind of examples with Git flow. And what's wonderful about Git flow is if you already have these in your day-to-day work, trying to branch a path, work on it, and then commit later, or in the process of getting ready for commit, you can just copy the Git flow, make a diagram out of it. Of course, like this one, change the colors up, and before you know it, you have a nice, easy to follow diagram that explains what you're trying to do with your project. So it's a useful way to walk people through a set of features or aspects of a project you're working on. So another good way to describe your work without having to really do much more than copy your existing work, which is a nice little benefit of using Git flow. And that said, I want to bookend this section with simple is better than complex. We saw a lot of examples and all sorts of different ways of doing them, all those 6 graphic fundamentals. Don't feel like you have to use every single tool or fundamental. If you just need to use one, if you're just a contrast person, you love contrast, that's fine. If you like colors or if you like structure a certain way, that's fine too. Simple is better than complex because you're trying to get to the core of the work and not be a virtuoso and create masterpiece diagrams. Now, with all that in mind, let's put it to the test and make a diagram for ourselves. And we'll talk about some tooling. So applying our knowledge, where do we start? We learned some great things about diagrams to make, how to make them, examples. So where's a starting point? You can make them just out of PowerPoint, you can use Canva, you can use all sorts of tools. So what's a good tool to use that can get you some good consistent results? Well, I am a big fan of Mermaid.js. Happy spinning mermaid. What Mermaid.js is a free to use open source software that you just use basic basic markup language to create diagrams. So you put the language in, diagram comes out. Like this example. The example here is just describing a simple flow. The state diagram is the title and type, and it has a starting point and a series of sequences. And this is all from the Mermaid.js website if you want to see examples, because it will then take this, you put it to a Mermaid.js module, and it will create this for you, this simple flow diagram. So that's what Mermaid.js does. It takes the markup language that you write for it, tell it what kind of diagram you want, like a state diagram, and it will push out a graphic just like that on the right. And before you know it, you're ready to go. And it's not just doing flowcharts. It has lots of variety. It can do Git flow diagrams, pie charts. It can create a database schema. It can do all sorts of state diagrams. It does a lot. So it has these varieties. You go to the website, you go to its Git repo, you can see all these different kinds of charts it can make. And on its website, you can actually just play around with the examples in the markup text and produce these kind of diagrams, play around with it, and get all sorts of results. So that's really neat and useful. And what's really nice, because it's free, you can have it in all sorts of software, like Draw.io is a popular one. It has a Mermaid.js module. So you can actually take that markup language to create these diagrams and do it in Draw.io. You don't have to just use Mermaid's website. What's great about that is you can edit it after you put the diagram in. For example, this diagram in Draw.io, we can change the text, the color schemes, the lines, you name it. And this is also true in many of the editing softwares, like Lucid Charts also has a Mermaid.js. In fact, most of the chart editing software out there has a Mermaid.js feature, so it's very useful. So here in a logic flow diagram, let's create something that tracks a simple flow chart of grocery shopping, starting from A, of getting money, then B, what to pick, and then C, options for your meats. And we get this chart to the right here showing the date, the steps involved, and then a decision, which is great. That's what I did with Mermaid.js. And we could stop there, but of course, we want to make this a better graphic. What now? We go to Draw.io, and you can see here in this menu selection, I can go all the way to the bottom there and input Mermaid.js, and it will then input that same chart as a nice structured hierarchy into Draw.io's workspace. And from there, we can do things like organize the structure a little bit, clean it up, make it a little more graphically presentable, then arrange the space so everything looks a little cleaner. I straighten out the curved lines a little bit to make it a little easier to follow where the arrows are going. Then I can use contrast to pop out the boxes so they stand out further than the lines. And then I just pick a color scheme that helps people understand where the beginning and end is and the process in the middle. And before you know it, we go from a default Mermaid.js output of these teal colors to something that's a little easier on the eyes, easier to follow, a little brighter. And then put that in my Git repo, upload it online. Before you know it, I have a chart I can share with the whole world in a few easy steps. Pretty cool, huh? But here's where we can go further. I can actually do all of this in VS Code. That's right. I can put Mermaid.js, Draw.io, and of course the GitHub repo all in the VS Code. They have extensions and modules for all of this. So you don't have to go between different websites and tools. It's all in one place. So once you get cranking out, you can get this done quickly and make lots of great examples like you see here. So that once you make one diagram and you figured out your color schemes and contrast, you make more and different configurations and you just host them on your repo. And before you know it, you can have a slide deck of diagrams. So that's the kind of thing we want to do here. Use existing tools to help us make pretty good diagrams. Again, we're here to make good diagrams, not necessarily masterpieces and virtuoso diagrams, but good functional diagrams we can make quickly and share with people. Again, this is to solve some communication gaps and make our documentation better. And you might be asking, this is all great, but what about Python? This is a Python talk, so let's talk about Python. What's great about Python, it has lots of great tools like PyDoc and diagrams module that you can install in your Python sessions. And from there, using simple Python functions, it will actually, through the diagrams module, create a chart like the one on the right. So you can actually play around with diagrams module and create, cloud architecture charts and all sorts of other things baked into the library. It'll create these PNGs for you. And of course, you can take it into editing software like Draw.io and modify it some more. As long as you're using the graphic principles and being able to communicate this in an adequate way, making it easy, not making it too complicated to the documentation and the users, we solve the same problem. This is just done in a different way from Mermaid.js. And I highly recommend all of you to check out this other tool called PyFlow, which uses low-code visual scripting with wires and nodes to describe a series of steps in code. This can be used to launch and execute real code, or it can be used as pseudocode to describe a process. Write it out like this guy's doing here, and before you know it, you have another diagram ready to go. It's pretty fun to play with. And for those of you who aren't just interested in tooling, but a real process, I recommend this next step. Because complex is better than complicated. While we have a lot of great stuff here, you don't want to make it complicated. It's okay to go from simple to complex as long as you avoid complicated and making it harder than it has to be. So for that, I recommend the C4 model by Simon Brown. He has a great concept of using diagram as close as you possibly can to create functional code. He has great examples that exemplify the kind of graphic fundamentals and UX we're talking about straight from his website. This is all of his native content describing how you make applications with his C4 model. And I couldn't help but share this nice template he made with, of course, contrast in mind and simple shapes that we've all seen for software architecture. So I highly recommend to read the C4 model if you want to get a grand kind of strategic vision of how you would use software architecture diagramming techniques to complement the graphic style. And some do's and don'ts. Do make graphic choices that resonate with your documentation and your audience. Simple ones, easy to follow. Don't be excessive and layer on too many things. Less is more. Do you use common formats, linear, radial, branching to make it easier for people to see and make it easier for you to create a repertoire of documentation? Don't be tangential and use exotic or uncommon formats because that might be getting in the way of your own documentation. Do use editing tools, Draw.io, Mermaid.js, VS Code, you name it, to help you edit and create diagrams quickly. Don't use Visio. Don't let friends use Visio. Closing thoughts. Remember our core fundamentals for UX: be clear, be concise, be useful. Graphic fundamentals: hierarchy, structure, contrast, color, space, variety. Use them all or use one as long as you're aware of how to use them to your advantage. Can't go wrong. And here's a call to action to all of you. Get examples you like. I always collect examples of diagrams that are interesting to me and use that as kind of like an inspiration. And reinvent your process. Do you need to use a certain tool like Mermaid.js or module, or just how you even start? Think about how you can modify your process. And then make or remake diagrams with these techniques in mind. So you can see if you can apply these ideas in a new way. And here's some bonus templates and content. Here's all the tools we talked about and links to other tools I mentioned: Mermaid, PyDoc, diagrams, and many others. And here's references if you want to learn more about the concepts behind all of this: Zen and Python, color schemes, and C4 model. Again, can't recommend that enough. And don't forget, beautiful is better than ugly. This is in Python. We're all here to make a more beautiful world, and Python makes it so easy. And I think the easiest way you could do it is with good documentation that conveys the importance of your project and respect to your team, to your users, and respect to the work you're doing. So never forget, beautiful is better than ugly. That's it for me. You can contact me if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to get in touch with all of you about anything we talked about. And again, QR code and link for this entire deck. It was a pleasure talking to all of you today. I hope you got something out of this, and happy diagramming ahead for everyone.